It's 5:30, so we'll call to order this meeting, City Council, for Monday, December 2nd, 2019. Carl, can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Remley, Ronayne, Lunsman,
Here.
Reif,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Bunceness,
Here.
Olson,
Here.
Rux,
Here.
Mayor Shoneman.
Here, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business will be to approve last week's minutes for the meeting of November 25th. Can I get a motion to do that?
Move to approve. Second.
Got a motion from Johnson and a second from Olson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion does carry. We'll approve those minutes. Next, we've got an official proclamation for the Giving Tuesday, which will be tomorrow. Whereas Giving Tuesday was established as a national day of giving on the Tuesday following Thanksgiving, and whereas Giving Tuesday is a celebration of philanthropy and volunteerism where people give whatever they're able to give, and whereas Giving Tuesday is a day where citizens work together to share commitments, rally for favorite causes, build a stronger community, and think about other people. And whereas it is fitting and proper on Giving Tuesday and on every day to recognize the tremendous impact of philanthropy, volunteerism, and community service in the city of Aberdeen. And whereas Giving Tuesday is an opportunity to encourage citizens to serve throughout this holiday season and other times of the year. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Travis Shoneman, Mayor of the City of Aberdeen in Brown County, State of South Dakota, hereby proclaim December 3rd, 2019 as Giving Tuesday in the City of Aberdeen and encourage all citizens to join together to give back to the community in any way that is personally meaningful. Thank you. Next, we have no open forum sign-ups, but I did have quite a lot of interest on social media and personal questions and correspondences as it relates to snow removal with that whole enterprise here. So I thought I would take just a few moments of everyone's time, put it on the official record, and have a small chat with Engineer Robin as it relates to snow removal, particularly as it relates to snow gates. He had shared some information with me personally, and he had put together a little bit of a presentation that I wasn't here for in the previous June, and I was going to just pitch him a few questions and have him kind of give us the broad overstroke of snow removal and the city's take on the issue of those apparatuses that we can attach should we choose snow gates. So, Robin, first and foremost, snow gates would or would not have worked with the amount of snow that we got in this latest snowfall?
This particular snowfall, snow gates would not have been a useful function for us. They will work for snows. I think if you take a look at the snow gate analysis that Sioux Falls did, they said it's effective for up to 5-inch snows. My experience is 4 to 6 inches a good number. Anything beyond that, you end up with snow that goes over the blade, it goes over the gate, it goes around the end. There's just too much volume to be able to doze that much until you get to a spot where you can open the gate back up. It does present its challenges beyond that 5-6 inch range, that's for sure. So for 16 inches, I know for sure that Bismarck and Sioux Falls would have suspended the use, especially because of the consistency of it. This was not a fluffy snow. This stuff stuck together pretty good and was, this was snowball making snow.
And so my understanding of the way that the snow is retrieved downtown, the way that it's retrieved in the emergency snow routes, those areas wouldn't get snow gate treatment anyways, even if we had them.
The downtown probably there would be very limited use why you would want to have it on there. For some of the emergency routes that do go through residential, I think some of those communities, the one that I'm experienced with, Jamestown, probably would have used it on the emergency routes in a residential area. Just because you've got a residential driveway there, you probably would have tried to use it. So It's more limited in those other areas, though. You're right.
And so when Sioux Falls put together their analysis, they had estimated there would be about a 33% increase in costs due to snow removal, factoring in the cost of the equipment and the cost of operations. Now that they've got it up and running, your understanding is that it actually came to fruition. They're actually spending about 30%.
I think it's in that range. That would be our experience. My experience in the past would have been probably 25 to 30% increase in time, and that 33% increase. And you've got additional fuel. You've got a lot of additional things that you're doing. It takes a lot more time.
And so if Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, we're spending about $100,000 per snow removal, give or take, rough numbers.
Yes.
So an increase of 33% would be approximately $30,000 per.
$33,000.
Or, yeah, I'll give you that.
Spoken like a true accountant.
I will give you that. Approximately 30,000, give or take. So if we're talking in terms of the number of snow removals that we average each year, about, would you say, how many times are we sending these things out?
Well, unfortunately, if you look at 2019, we've had at least 12 events. We anticipated the original budget of $773,000. So far, we've spent to date, and that doesn't include this last 16-inch storm, $1,348,000. So the negative budget variance to date for 2019 has been $575,000, which is about 74% of the regular annual appropriation. And so we're significantly off for 2019.
So out of that many snow removals, we're probably looking at about $360,000 to date this year with the additional expense at 12 incidents.
400.
Round up.
And in terms of staffing, those type of concerns is one thing that a lot of people had kind of brought forward. Robin, what type of extra time span would we be looking at if we were to add snow gates to the removal process?
The 16-inch snow created about that 25% additional time, which meant that our guys started at 4 a.m. yesterday, and some of them got done a little after 7 last night. So you start doing the math. They were out for a significant period of time. Some of them were fueling up and putting on cutting edges, doing some of those cleanup stuff, so that at 4 a.m. or at 10 p.m. rather, when our crews went downtown, things were ready to go for the next shift. So using that as an example, if you ended up with a significant snow plus you ended up trying to use the snow gates, you might be looking at time well beyond where any of us would be comfortable having our guys out there working, which means a second shift, or you go into a second day, which then means we're reducing the level of service that we strove for, 9 years ago, whatever it's been.
So in terms of the overall time from the time that the first snowplow goes out to the time that you're finished, normally speaking, about how many days or how many hours are we looking at?
Well, normally, when we send our crew out, they're going to be out at 4 a.m. That's assuming that downtown snow removal is happening the following night. So we went out 4 a.m. on Sunday morning. Normally, we would be done by 4 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe doing some little cleanup, 1 or 2 pieces of equipment out a little bit later. But most of the guys are back to the shop in about a 12 or 13-hour day.
And then how many days? Because I saw that
We do the residential in 1 day. So all your emergency routes and all your residential is taken care of in 1 day.
Sure.
So-
Many of the communities that have snow gates do not get their residential done in 1 day. So there's a trade-off.
Yeah, it seems like that would definitely be the case in ours if they're pushing 13, 14-hour days. As is. Well, that was a lot of the questions and concerns that a lot of residents had, and since it wasn't an agenda item, I thought I would bring it up during open forum. Does anyone have any questions as it relates to this?
I don't have any questions, but I do remember the conversation when we were in 2-day snow removal and got a lot of response and tried to go up where Mark Remley lives on, I think it's Casper, and it was amazing what those people have to go through to get out, and that's exactly what they would have faced yesterday, and probably even a greater amount of snow. And so we made that change to 1 day, and you could see it last night. when I was going home right around 6:30, where the east-west roads on Main Street had not been plowed down in the 15th Avenue area, and so you knew that they were still out. And that typically is that 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock time frame that they're done with the smaller snows. So you knew that there was a lot of snow, and you just take a look at the main core, and there still was the windrow on South Main this morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, when typically that is gone by the time you're going to work. So they were dealing with a lot of snow, plus they didn't even get 6th Avenue and 2nd Street removed, right? Normally you do get it removed. No, you barely got Main Street or the core done. So one of the big factors, was it 9 years ago, was getting away from this 2-day. Major employer of Aberdeen, I don't know if they called anyone else out on the council, but they presented to me their concerns about having 2 days. And regardless if people are, calling in saying I can't make it because they really can't make it, or they're just doing it for a day off, they had a concern about it. And so that's why I was excited about going to the 1 day. And I'm not excited about going to 2 days with snow gates. I understand that's an inconvenience. But with all the modern things that we have today, you would think that we would be able to take care of it on our own.
Yeah, one of the reasons I brought it up was, I thought that it's not fair that everyone kind of take the heat for this occurrence being a Snowgate conversation when it's one that wouldn't have been applicable to Snowgates in the very first place. So I don't think that, I think that Snowgates are something that are very popular in the community in terms of an idea, is maybe something to explore, but this circumstance certainly wouldn't have warranted it, it wouldn't have helped.
Well,
There's
I
other
watched
challenges.
those graders go by my house and helped several neighbors getting through that crud out of the end of their driveway. And it's no fun. I understand that, but that's, the result of getting a lot of snow.
And I think one thing that people don't realize is that we actually don't own all of our equipment. We lease a huge amount of it, and we rely on contractors. And if we are going to start requiring our contractors to do this, as we've seen with the overnight operations, they're just not going to do it. And already we've had to purchase equipment because contractors are unwilling to do the overnight operations because they want to service their own customers first. And so now what do? And the 1 day, you know what? I saw those graders, and like I say, in many circumstances, they had to keep their speed up. In some cases, you're sitting there wondering how they were even getting through that. And so, like I say, it was also a difficult one. And also on that, going away from the 2 day when we did it, is we also looked at the wear and tear on our employees. It's not just equipment, but our employees. If you're doing a 2 day, this is already going to be a 3 or 4 day event to finish up. Now you're going to stretch it into 4 or 5, by the time they get the cul-de-sacs cleaned out, maybe go through the alleys again, downtown parking lots. This is a lot. And this is another holiday weekend where our employees have had it cut short to come and do this. And it's one of those things where the 1 day is great. We get our equipment. And even in Sioux Falls, probably only about 30% of that town gets snow gates anyway. Most of it's done with truck plows, which you don't put snow gates on anyway.
So first and foremost, we know it was a big hassle and inconvenience for all the employees to come in on Sunday. We're grateful that they did. I think they did a good job overall. It was a lot to be asking for someone to push through that big, heavy, tough snow. So we asked the public for a little bit of leeway in this one. It was tough, and hang with us. We'll keep doing a good job.
Travis, can I add one more thing?
Please do, Josh.
I would just say that I think Lynn would agree that adding more services without increasing fees in any sort of manner would be difficult. So if there is overwhelming public support for something like Snowgates, it would probably have to come down to some sort of a bond measure for us to pay for it, just to keep that in mind as well.
Anytime you've got new costs. No question. So if we've got nothing else, I'll move on to old business. First, we've got ordinance 1911-01, ordinance to rezone from R3 district to R3HC districts for Lot 3 Hegarty's re-subdivision in Aberdeen, 601 Second Avenue Southeast. Possible second reading and final adoption of ordinance 1911-01. Brett, what have you got?
No changes from last week, Mayor.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion from Olson and a second from Rux. Is there any further discussion or questions for Brett while we've got him on the line here? Otherwise, Carl, give me a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Lunsman.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got ordinance 1911-02, ordinance amending the city code regarding nuisance fire alarms, possible second reading and final adoption of ordinance 19-11-02. We have the two gentlemen that deal with our fires around here. Once again,
Move approval.
Second.
both camera shy here today.
Hey, Robin, you want to switch the order? Is there going to be an ordinance amendment on this?
So there was a little bit of a back and forth with a couple of council members and myself and a resident about some of the minutia involved in the language of the bill, but I think that we were able to kind of straighten things out by just chatting through this, making the discussion, just so that everyone is aware. The concern of the gentleman that brought forward was primarily concerned with the resetting occurrences. So since you were kind of looped into this, Chad, why don't you just tell us a little bit about, real quick, how an occurrence of a false alarm gets reset and a person gets a new timeline to be dealing with issues?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much. So the question did come up, how do incidences fall off? How long does it build? At what point do you kind of reset your slate? And really the intention of this, and I'll use City Hall as an example, and we have a head that goes bad in the council chambers. And they come and they replace it and everything works fine. And then on third floor, the roof leaks and the sensor up there goes bad. That would be a new separate incident. It wouldn't be a continuation of the one previously. Once a problem is resolved, and that's really what we want, is just a quick resolution of these problems. Once that problem is resolved, that issue is kind of closed out and it's done. And a separate incident would be treated as a new occurrence.
So that would be something similar as, let's say, someone's having problems with their fire alarm panel, and so they upgrade that system. But then they then have problems with the sensors as it's going through. It's maybe some issues getting the system set. You're considering then that, let's say, okay, your old fire alarm panel was a problem. You got a new one. We're now in a reset type thing where the old issue is closed out and we're now dealing with a new one.
Exactly, and I think you could even consider that as a continuation of, as you troubleshoot stuff and you're working to resolve it, you find something else and it kind of extends out from that. But yeah, that wouldn't be a separate occurrence. And I think the best example would be if the head in here went bad and, we reset it and said it's bad, you need to get it repaired, and 2 weeks later, we come back and the same head goes off and, have you contacted a technician? Well, I haven't really had time to, and,
Yeah.
that's where it becomes the reoccurring issue.
And just so that I'm reading the thing correctly, the nuisance alarm incident form that a person gets specifies that these incidents happen within a 12-month period.
Yes, yep, absolutely. And
So they fall off after 12 months.
They would fall off after 12 months, correct.
Okay, so we've got a motion from Bunceness and a second. Who made the second over there?
I would like to request one change that came out after some discussion today, and I think the intention was to have it as kind of a 1-year period, not a calendar year, that those offenses accrue in. So I am requesting, and I believe it's up on your screen as well, that subsection 1 just to change it to during a 1-year period rather than each calendar.
I'll move the amendment.
Second.
Okay, and then Ron, from a logistical standpoint, does this alter this thing to the extent that they will need an additional reading, or is this?
This would not be a substantial amendment, so no, it would not require an additional reading.
So I just would make the point that the constituent brought this up, this very issue, starting the clock on the first incident, and that's what this addresses, right?
Correct, yes.
And that was kind of your understanding to begin with, right? You understood that was what you thought was going to essentially be happening is
Yeah, I did, yes.
incident one. Okay.
So by way of explanation to the council, what we patterned a lot of this off was a model code, a model of fire alarm code that Chief Meister had provided. And so some of this language came in, but once we looked at this and focused on this looked like the correct change to make.
Great.
Sounds good. So we've got a motion from Johnson, or excuse me, Bunsen, a second from Johnson as it relates to the amendment, changing the language from calendar year to within a 1-year time period. Can I get a roll call vote on that?
Voice vote is fine.
Okay, so I'll do a voice vote on that. All in favor of making that amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. So that does carry. So does anyone else have anything to add or question as it relates to the bigger picture ordinance before we take a vote on that?
So one of the other concerns of, and I'm not proposing any amendment, but one of the other concerns, and we hear this often, is, that this is fine for the group that we have before us, that, you're taking the softer approach, basically. But what if you get a fire marshal that's, to the letter of the law and becomes pretty hard about these? How do we address that, Chief?
That's a good question.
So we have this understanding with you today,
Correct.
but if there's personnel change, how do we, all of us won't be here forever.
Sure. Well, and the chief willing, I'll be here for quite a while. So that's part of that, and I think,
Have you had your first review yet?
and I have not, no. And I think hiring a compassionate, understanding individual when I'm gone.
Okay.
Well, and then just to clarify that, Ron, there's no really, like, these things are falling off after a year. Like, you have a 1-year period for these incidents, then it's a done deal. No matter how you read it, that's the interpretation.
Right.
That's what this thing says.
That's correct, and if I could kind of flesh out Chad's response, the way these are drafted are intended to be as they are. If somebody is not working with us, then this is what will happen. Eventually, it could come down to a fire watch, to revocation of the occupancy. I mean, the nuclear option. But again, so that's the way it has to be written, and that's the way this is written. In practice and in application, it's unlikely that it'll ever get to that. But
Right,
if somebody is absolutely obstinate, stiff-necked, then this is what's going to happen.
I agree.
But no matter
Just wanted to
how
have the conversation.
heavy-handed a fire marshal may be, they're going to get 3 warnings.
Absolutely, and this is right there, yep.
Sounds good. Carl, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye. Motion does carry. Next, we've got ordinance, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next, we've got ordinance 1911-03, ordinance setting the salaries and wages of city officials and employees for the upcoming year. Possible second reading and final adoption of the ordinance. Carl, any new information on that, or what have you got to contribute?
No changes, Mayor.
Move.
Changes
Second.
whatsoever. We've got a motion from Johnson and a second from Olson. Does anyone have any discussion on this? Otherwise, Carl, give me a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Lunsman.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got routine city business consent calendar items A and B. Can I get a motion on those 2 items, please?
Moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Lunsman and a second from Rife. Does anyone have any discussion as it relates to either this video lottery, or the taxi cab license issue. Otherwise, I'll take all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Consent calendar does pass. Next, we've got new business, request to declare a vacant lot surplus property, to direct the disposal of such real property according to state law, and to appoint appraisers. Possible approval to adopt Resolution 19-12-02R, declaring as surplus property Lot 1 in M&M Second Subdivision, and directing the disposal of such surplus property according to state law. Possible approval to appoint pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 613-2, Craig Mixon, Marshall Auburn, and Jeff Mitchell, all real property owners within the city of Aberdeen, to appraise the value of the real property that was surplused. Ron, tell us about that.
Thank you, Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Department did a lot of work to help us try to clear up and identify some parcels that are located in the area of what would be South First Street between 11th Avenue Southwest and 12th Avenue Southwest. They were able to get that replatted. The council approved that replat last week. Now we are in a position where we should identify this property, get it surplused and back into a productive use. So we're requesting that the council approve the resolution 19-12-02R, surplusing that lot, and then also appointing the three gentlemen that we've got identified in the council action request to submit appraisal. And that is a procedure that we can use on these smaller properties and help expedite this. We are hopeful that once we've got that in place, we might be able to see a bid opening by January 7th.
Move approval.
Second.
We've got a motion from Bunceness and a second from Rux. Does anyone have any questions for the city attorney as it relates to this? Is me enough money for snowplow edition? What do you call it? Snow gates. I keep forgetting the name of those doggone things.
Absolutely. I'm sure that we'll get very high bids on this property.
Perfect. Carl, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye. Motion does carry. Next, we've got NECOG Joint Cooperative Agreement for the upcoming year. Possible approval, and authorize the mayor to sign the joint cooperation or cooperative agreement for the upcoming year with NECOG for the city of Aberdeen. Carl, tell us about that.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an annual occurrence. We enter into this agreement with Northeast Council of Governments so that if we have any need for them to do any research for us or any grant applications, they can follow through with it. We do get billed for this annually. They split the cost between the different municipalities within the Northeast region and the counties within the region.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion from Bunceness and a second for Johnson.
Just a quick
Lynn?
comment on top of what Carl had to say. When you talk about value to the community, they were instrumental in getting grant money for the Boys and Girls Club new building. Likewise, they've helped Happy Homes on remodels, and so even though they're not directly grants to the city, there are city improvements that are happening through them.
I would say that I strongly believe that Eric does a fine job over there. We've got a motion from Bunceness and a second from Johnson. Carl, give me a roll call vote, please. Or actually, we could probably do that with a voice vote, huh? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion does carry. Next, we've got the request to purchase HPE Nimble Soft Storage HF20 unit for computer services. Possible approval to purchase the HPE Nimble Storage HF20 unit from One Neck IT Solutions at a cost of $33,627.48 as requested. Carl, tell me about that.
Well, this is, as it states, thank you, Mayor, sorry. This is a storage unit, as you can imagine. Storage anymore for computer systems, networks, continues to grow almost daily, it seems like. But this will be a more modern unit that we currently have. We will still take the older units and try and repurpose them to either work as backups or to maintain some additional non-essential type information.
Sounds good. Can I get a motion to make that purchase, please?
So moved. Second.
And a motion from Rux, and a second from Olson. Does anyone have any questions for Carl as it relates to this purchase? Otherwise, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Lunsman.
Aye.
Rife,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the request to declare certain unpaid ambulance accounts uncollectible and allow the fire department to write off these balances. Possible approval to declare $246,894.15 in unpaid accounts uncollectible and allow the fire department to write off these balances. Randy, how would you like to take a seat at the podium for us? Tell me a little bit about these unpaid balances.
This is ours from 2016, 17, and 18. Majority of them have all gone through a collection company, and maybe we get maybe 50% of them back, which we don't get all that. And obviously, the company gets their share. So obviously, this are all the amount that we can no longer go after.
Move approval.
Second.
And so, when is the last time that you'd written that off? Obviously, after the 2015 calendar year?
Yes, that would probably be correct. That would probably be before me. That would have been past chief, but that must be. That was
Were these amounts totaling 246,000 relatively consistent, or is this a growing number?
Carl, would you be able to answer that?
You know, it continues to grow. Just medical costs in general, the different supplies that the ambulance department has to use, and the amount of technology that they've brought on board. I would say our level of care for the ambulance service is second to none in the state.
Correct.
I might be boasting there, but I truly believe that. If I was in an accident, I would be happy that our ambulance is showing up.
Yeah, but I don't know what amount we wrote off in previous years, if that is a
Sure. I just wondered, is it a growing number? Is next year going to be even bigger? Do you have a sense, Carl, what is 246,000 in this 3-year period? What does that represent of the total billable? Is it a pretty high number?
Yeah, we probably bill out somewhere between $1 million and $1.2 million a year.
So 20-25%?
Yep.
Gotcha. So we've got a motion from Bunsen. Was that you, Dave?
Mm-hmm.
And a second from someone over here.
Olson.
Mike Olson.
So
Anyone have any questions for either Randy or Carl?
we write off ambulance accounts every year.
Yes.
What the collection agency deems as uncollectible, or do we deem it uncollectible?
We deem this uncollectible, meaning our collection process has brought nothing for these particular accounts. There's a section of those that we can't get because of death or their Medicare. There's just no way we can get those. The other 216,000, I think it was, or whatever the number, we send those then to the collection agency. They will work on those for some period, 1 to 2 years. And whatever they do collect, then they take their percentage off of that. I think it's like 40% or 30%, depending on the type of work that they have to do those collections.
And in speaking with Randy, it sounds as though quite a bit of the time insurance is covering these costs for people.
That does happen, yes.
So, I mean, of the 750,000 in the last 3 years that did get paid, would you say insurance is a big percentage of that?
Between insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, other types of coverage.
So the loss we're seeing to people paying cash for ambulance services is
Yep,
pretty darn high.
and most of these uncollectible, as noted in the handout, are from people out of state. If they're in state, we have a much better chance of collecting from them through communication. Once they're out of state, they're out of mind as far as they're concerned. What happens in South Dakota stays in South Dakota.
Gotcha.
Might want to ask them about the county portion, what happens with the county portion on the collection, because this is city-county ambulance service.
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So Lynn brought forward the idea that this is a joint effort between ourselves and the county. The collection efforts as it relates to county, like it's a joint funded operation, the ambulance service.
It's evolved over the years, and Randy, you can correct me if I make any misstatements, please, but currently, if there are any calls for residents in Brown County outside the city limits that we have not collected, we will bill the county for that. They will pay that. But then any collections that they make or that we make on those, we'll give them credit for. Because the county does give us payment for some of those uncollectibles, they can then put a lien against those people, Ron, what's the type of lien that, a personal property lien or? That's
Well,
not
no,
right.
it would be a property lien. It would be a hospital type lien
Okay.
is what they would get. So,
Yep.
yeah.
And
So
those
then
are
the
the only
county can
liens that
collect
we
that
can
from
get is when
those
the county
individuals
becomes
and keep the money.
Yeah, those go against only any real property that person owns within the county.
Right, so
Yeah.
if they try and sell any property, they have to clean up that lien before they can
But that's
transact
only the
sale.
ones outside of city limits.
Correct.
And that's more or less a paperwork thing, it sounds
Yes.
like. Gotcha.
Why-
Something
Why
to look
don't
into,
we
perhaps.
do that within the city for property owners?
And I think didn't we start that?
We do that.
Yeah, we do do
Okay.
that.
I'd say we do that.
Yeah, if there's uncollectible within the city and they, that gets turned over to the county as well, and the auditor as well, and they will impose that as a method to
Okay.
get that money out of them, so.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And so my advice to everyone here in the council, please don't use the ambulance any more than you need to. Unless you got the money for it, then you can use it as much as you feel like.
That's right.
Well, at least here they can dock our pay.
Yeah. I don't know, is that possible? It didn't seem reasonable to me. Clint, come on now. Carl, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Thanks for your time. Next, we've got recommendation on bids for the 2019 booster station renovation for the utility water department. Possible approval to award the bid to Dakota Pump Inc. in the amount of $89,100 and to authorize the city manager and finance officer to sign all necessary documents after approval by the city attorney. Robin, what do you know about that booster station renovation?
This is for a single pump. It's an 8 million gallon per day pump. It will keep the towers full during most operations. We have a variable frequency drive that's hooked to it so we can operate it in a variety of operating conditions. Low bid was from Dakota Pump out of Mitchell. We've done business with them before. They're very good at what they do. And part of this bid is not just the pump, but dismantling, taking things apart. The variable frequency drive is something we purchased not too many years ago, so we're reusing that. So part of it is the labor to take things apart and put it back together again so it's operational for us. But the one that we're replacing, the pump that we're replacing, is fairly old. And so we need to do this partly just for reliability as our demands grow over the years here.
Sounds good. Can I get a motion to make that?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Johnson and a second from Rux. Carl, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lunsman.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got change order payment for the accessible quadrant improvement project, possible approval for the change order number 3, a deduction in the amount of $8,752.87, and the pay estimate number 4 in the amount of $8,393.26 to Wright and Sudlow for work in the accessible quadrant improvements. Robin.
You've got the final estimate in front of you and the change order. Bottom line is, they completed this work quite a while ago. We're just trying to clean up the paperwork before the end of the year. Wright and Sudlow completed things fine, and the final estimate is basically just releasing the retainage that they had for the work they performed earlier in the year. So,
Thank you, sir. Can I get a motion
Moved.
to make that payment? Got a motion.
Second.
Bunceness and a second from Rux over there.
Olson.
Oh, sorry about that. Bunceness and Olson. Carl, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the approval of the bill list for December 2nd, 2019, as you see on your screen, with one addition, the APO LLC for a reimbursement of some sort for the amount of $14,638.80. So understanding that we have that additional piece, can I get a motion to pay these bills?
Move to approve.
Second.
We got a motion from Lunsman and a second from Johnson. Does anyone have any questions before we take this vote? Otherwise,
APO,
That's a rental reimbursement with
For
the
the old
purchase of the
federal
federal building. The payments have still been coming to the city, and we've just been forwarding them back to the new owner.
GSA rent reimbursement, it says. I had a tough time deciphering.
Sorry
your
about my
language,
handwriting.
It's all good. I can read it now that I understand what it means. So we've got a motion from Lunsman and a second from Johnson. Carl, can I get a roll call vote on paying those bills?
Councilmember Lunsman.
Aye.
Reif.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the city manager's report. Lynn, what have you got for us?
I have no report, but I would kind of like to comment about my day. On occasion, I do receive calls after each snow event, but the majority of my calls today were somewhat different than what I've received in the past, and I know that you had these same calls last year, but the calls I received today were neighbor versus neighbor issues. A lot of civil issues where people are blowing their snow on their neighbor's property or blowing it across the street to their neighbor's property. But a clear majority of my calls dealt with neighbor issues today, to the point where one individual blew enough snow volume where they actually broke their neighbor's fence. And that's really not a city issue. But I just want you
Your
aware.
neighbors, I think Ellen says something about that. Yeah, and I would agree. I think that I was deciphering most of these things from online discussions. There's quite a lot of interest in Snowgates. I don't think that all the information is out there or has been deciphered by all these people. So I think it's our responsibility to put this information forward, let people have an informed stance on the topic, and I don't think that there's any one right answer, but maybe we can find the one for our community. Anything else to add before we adjourn? Otherwise, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
move to it.
Motion Bunsen, second. Johnson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.